Welcome to the Money Love Podcast. I'm your host and money coach, Paige Pritchard. If you're ready to uplevel your results in relationship with money, you're in the right place. Each week, I give you the tools to transform your mindset, manage your emotions, and achieve results with your money you never dreamed were possible. Hi, love. Welcome to episode 11 of the Money Love Podcast, where today we are going to be talking all about how to believe new things. So I love teaching this concept. It's exactly what I'm going to walk you through today, this process, but it's essentially this journey of getting from one thought to another, what you currently believe to be true, and then forming new beliefs. We're going to talk about that today, and I'm going to walk you through that entire process. Okay, let's talk about how to believe new things. Like I said, this is a really interesting process that we now have to go through. So if you remember from the very first episode, by the way, can I just say the very first episode, which is all about your money history and your beliefs, is my most listened to episode. And I think that there's a reason for that. It's an amazing episode, but it's really an episode that's going to challenge you, and it walks you through this process of uncovering what you currently believe about money. And in that episode, I walk you through this past, present, and future exercise, like I said, to really start to uncover your thoughts and beliefs about money. And in that episode, I told you that I was going to have a future episode on how to basically bridge the gap between two thoughts, bridge the gap between what you currently believe about something and what you want to believe about something. And this is that episode. And so what I've done since the start of this podcast is I have given you a lot of exercises to gain awareness over what you currently believe about money and your potential when it comes to building wealth. And I've also offered you a lot of other ideas and thoughts that you can adopt about money that I think are going to serve you a lot better in creating your version of a rich life. So for instance, I've told you, hey, you can stop thinking that you have to give a lot of your time and a lot of your effort and work really hard if you want to make money. Instead, focus on value because that's where money comes from. I've told you things like, hey, money isn't scarce. It's not limited like you've been thinking it is this entire time. It's everywhere. It's abundant and it's on its way to you. I've told you, hey, money isn't boring. It's not confusing. It's not intimidating. In fact, it's actually really fun and exciting and easy. So now where we are is we're in a situation where you might be like, okay, I have awareness over what I believe about money. I've gone through the exercises. I've dug all that out. I've realized that most of what I believe about money isn't going to be very helpful in me reaching my full financial potential. And now I have some alternative viewpoints that are going to be much more productive in me going out and reaching my full potential. I understand the model now. I understand that my thoughts create my feelings. I understand that my feelings drive my actions, and that ultimately my actions added up over time are going to create the results that I see in any area of life. So I get it now. I understand how important it is to have really good, productive thoughts swirling around in my head. I want to believe awesome things about money because I want to create amazing financial results in my life. Okay, so that's kind of where we are. If you've been listening to the podcast, this is where you should be. Okay, you should know what you believe, but I've also offered you a lot of really good viewpoints and alternatives that you can use to replace your money beliefs that aren't serving you. But now you might be thinking, okay, how do I get from one to the other? How do I go from believing that money is hard and confusing to money is easy and fun? How do I go to believing that I'm broke to believing I'm wealthy? A lot of people think that it's just a matter of switching from one to the other. But when you understand how your brain works, you know that it's really not that simple. I wish it was, but it's just not, okay? So closing that gap between two opposing thoughts is what we're going to be walking through in today's episode. And just so you know, you can apply this to any area of your life when you're trying to form new beliefs about the world or about yourself. Now, I want to just start by reminding you that you have control over your thoughts, and you have the personal freedom and the autonomy to believe whatever you want to believe about money. about yourself, and about yourself when it comes to money. And by knowing this, and by questioning what you've believed your entire life about money, I'm telling you, that puts you ahead of 95% of people in the world. Because most people never take time to question their programming. They never take time to question their beliefs. It's actually incredibly rare that we take the time to slow down and say, hey, do I want to question that belief? Does that belief even make sense to me? Does this belief align with the life that I'm wanting to build? I'm telling you, most people don't do this, and by you doing it, you will be ahead of most. I remember learning that I had control over what was going on in my own brain. It was such a powerful and life-altering moment for me because it was almost like I was taking my life off cruise control. I was coming out of autopilot and realizing that I had control over the direction that my life was going to take. And unfortunately, a lot of people just don't know that. They think that they're always going to be in debt. They think that they're always going to make the same amount of money. They think that they're always going to struggle financially because they think that it's the circumstances of their life that are calling the shots. And guess what? We don't have control over the circumstances of our life. So it just becomes this apathetic acceptance that this is simply just the card that you drew and this is how your life is going to play out. But that's not the way that it works at all. You can change your life by changing your thinking. It's terrifying and exhilarating all at the same time. You're like, amazing, I'm in control. And then you're like, shoot, I'm in control. It's like this roller coaster of emotions at first, but then it really comes down to you taking personal responsibility and ownership between what's happening between your own ears. I want to make this point as well. A lot of people struggle to believe new things because they think that the evidence has to exist first in order for them to believe something new. So they think that in order to believe I'm disciplined, or in order to believe the thought I'm financially savvy, that past evidence must exist in order to prove those beliefs true. And this can be really detrimental because you think, well, I can't think that I'm disciplined until I am disciplined. I can't think that I'm financially savvy until I am financially savvy. So we have it backwards. We think that the action has to come first, and then the belief will be there. The belief will follow. But what does that create? That just means that you're spinning and creating more of your past into the future, and you're never evolving into new territory. And when you know your model, you know that it's the other way around. You know that your thinking dictates your actions and results. So if you're waiting for the action to come first, if you're waiting for the result to come first, and then you can start believing, then it's going to be followed by the belief, you're never going to get there. The belief has to come first. And since we can believe whatever we want, what do I always tell you? You can believe anything you want about money and about anything, really. And since we can believe whatever we want, we don't have to wait for the evidence to be there. We can just start believing just because we want to. That is a good enough reason. When you can give yourself the allowance to start believing whatever you want, even if the past evidence isn't there, that is truly when you will start to see your life start to explode. Okay, so here's how we do this. This really is a 3-step process. The first 2 steps we've already done. So really all we need to do at this point is focus on the 3rd step, but I am going to review for you the first 2 steps. And I really should say there is kind of like a step that comes before these 3 steps. And the step that comes before the 3 steps is what I just told you. It's giving yourself the allowance to know I can believe whatever I want to believe. I don't need any past evidence. I don't need anyone's permission. I can simply just believe a new thought because I want to. And that is a good enough reason to. So once you've given yourself the allowance to believe anything that you want to believe, then it really comes down to these 3 steps. The first step is gaining awareness over your current thinking. Okay, check. We did that episode 1. If you missed that episode, or if you haven't done that yet, you got to start there. You got to dig out all the thoughts and all the beliefs that you have bouncing around in your head about money. Now, once you've done this, you will probably notice, and if you've already gone through this process, you probably made this observation as well, that if we were to stick your beliefs into a model, the CTFAR, we would probably find that most of the thoughts that you're having aren't producing a very positive result in your life. Some will, but a lot won't, right? This is just how our brains are wired. Our brains are wired to go to the negative. And those are the thoughts and beliefs that we want to work to change. Remember in episode 1, I tell you, these are the beliefs that are not serving you. These are the beliefs that are not going to help you create the financial life that you want to build. That is the first step, awareness. The second step is identifying what we call your goal thought. This is the thought that you want to replace your current thinking with. This is going to be the thought that when you stick it in a model, it's going to create a more productive result for you, a result that is going to help you create your version of your rich life. So this becomes kind of like a map. We know where you are with your current thinking, and we know where we want to get to. And so now we just need the directions to get there. We need to know how to go from A to B. Now, in our current era of instant gratification, we want this to be a very fast and easy process, right? We're like, oh, okay, this is just a much better belief, so let me just go ahead and believe that now. And sometimes that can't happen. I mean, I have had goal thoughts that I've been able to adopt very quickly, and they just stick because they feel very aligned, very natural, and they really make a lot of sense to me. But a lot of times it's not so easy. And this is where it's helpful to understand how your brain works. If you're starting down the path of trying to eradicate and replace a thought and belief that is very ingrained, that you've thought a lot over and over and over, this is not going to be a quick or an overnight process. You're going to have what I call the 2 Ps, practice and patience. Thoughts and beliefs that you've had for a very long time have formed very strong and automatic neurological connections in your brain. They reside in the part of your brain that is more subconscious, that is very automatic. They are thoughts that sometimes you don't even realize that you're having. It's just like, bam, it's there. And these types of thoughts, really, we should call them beliefs. Remember, a belief is simply a thought that you've thought over and over and over again until it seems like truth to you. And beliefs are much harder to replace because they are so ingrained. Now, you know I love analogies, so I'm going to give you one here, okay? I want you to think of your beliefs as very slick and open 8-lane highways, okay? The cars are just cruising 80 miles an hour. They're flying, there's no traffic, everything is just moving very quickly. These are your beliefs that are very ingrained. They're just firing away. Then when you're forming a new goal thought, this is more like a dirt road, okay? A narrow, dusty, bumpy dirt road. You certainly can't drive as fast on it. It's more uncomfortable. It's not as convenient. But over time, the more that you drive on the dirt road and the more construction and work you do to it, eventually you can turn that dirt road into a highway. Just like in the real world, though, this process is not going to happen overnight. So what we have to do is we have to work our way from your current thinking to your goal thinking, one step at a time, through what's called a thought ladder, or sometimes referred to as bridge thoughts. Here's why we do this. Here's why we take it one step at a time. Trying to go from one thought to a different thought that is a complete 180-degree shift is like trying to jump over a canyon. It's a big leap. It might work, but it probably won't. You're so attached to your old beliefs and your old thought patterns that when you try to go from one to another, your brain is just going to be like, no, I don't think so. We don't believe that. We believe this. This is what I know. This is what I'm familiar with. This is what I'm comfortable with. And this is what a lot of people try to do with affirmations, right? When people have a list of affirmations or intentions that they say every day and that they just try to repeat over and over and over again. And here's the problem with affirmations for some people. I'm not saying they don't work for everybody, but a lot of people do have issues or trouble with them. And here's why. So you try and practice a new thought, an affirmation. But the problem with affirmations is that a lot of times you don't believe the affirmation because the affirmation is the exact opposite of your current reality and what's currently ingrained in your head. So for example, if you're struggling with your weight and you think that your body is ugly, and so you just say, my body is beautiful, my body is beautiful, my body is beautiful over and over, that might not resonate with you at all. You may not even be able to like hook on to that even just a little bit and believe it because it's just so opposite of what you've thought for so long and what's so ingrained. And if you can't believe it, it's not going to feel good. When you say my body is beautiful, your brain's going to be like, yeah, I'm beautiful. What? No, you're not. And so what's going to happen is you're just going to end up feeling really negative, and it's not going to elicit the feeling that you need it to elicit. Sometimes the jump is just too much. It's too far of a stretch. Remember, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. If we're not getting the appropriate feeling from the thought, from the affirmation, then everything just starts to break down. It has to be believable. And that is where a thought ladder comes in. When we can implement a thought ladder, it's more like jumping over a bunch of puddles on the ground one by one than trying to leap across the Grand Canyon. So here's the process of a thought ladder. At the bottom of your ladder is going to be your current thinking. At the top of your ladder is going to be your goal thought. And what we have to do is we have to work up the ladder rung by rung until we can make it to the top. So for example, I'm going to say that your current thinking is the thought, I'm broke. You've gone through the process of uncovering your thoughts, uncovering your beliefs, and you've noticed that I'm broke is a thought that you keep finding yourself thinking a lot. And we can obviously see why you going out and thinking I'm broke, I'm broke, I'm broke wouldn't serve you very well, right? If we were to stick that in our model. Now, as a reminder, we know that this is a thought, not a fact, right? This is important. We know that this is a thought because broke is subjective. What does broke even mean? Broke to me is different than broke to you. Ask yourself, if everyone in the world looked at my financial situation, would they also have the same thought of, I'm broke? Probably not, right? Not every single person in the world. And it's pretty sobering to think about the fact there are plenty of people in the world that would probably kill to have your financial situation, even if you do think, quote, I'm broke. Now, your goal thought is what you want to get to. And let's just say in this example, your goal thought is, I'm wealthy. And remember, you can always think the thought, I'm wealthy, just so you know. You can think I'm wealthy regardless of the number in your bank account. Wealthy is also a very subjective word as well, right? Wealthy to me might not mean wealthy to you. So we can all just choose to think, I'm wealthy. So we want to go from I'm broke to I'm wealthy. Obviously, these are polar opposite thoughts. We are making a complete 180-degree shift here. So there are a couple steps on how we're going to get from I'm broke to I'm wealthy. The first rung on your ladder that you're going to step up is you're simply just going to add the phrase, I keep thinking, in front of your current thought. So you're going to pay attention to what's going on in your brain. You're going to be the watcher of your own mind. And whenever you catch yourself thinking the thought, I'm broke, you're going to pause, you're going to rewind a little bit, and instead you're going to say, I notice I keep thinking the thought, I'm broke. I notice I keep thinking the thought, I'm broke. This signals to your brain that I'm broke is simply just a thought, which means that it's not a fact. And it's simply your interpretation, which means it's open to be changed. You're going to do this and you're going to practice this until you feel like your brain knows and has accepted the fact that I'm broke is just a thought. I notice I keep thinking the thought, I'm broke, or whatever your current thought is. I notice I keep thinking, fill in the blank. Now, once you get comfortable with that, you're going to be ready to move to the next rung of the ladder, which is adding a series of what I call openers or closers with your current thought. So an opener is a statement that you add in front of your current thought, and a closer is a statement that you add after your current thought. And yes, you might be wondering what we just did saying, I notice I keep thinking the thought. That is actually an example of an opener. So these two first rungs are kind of interchangeable. But more examples of an opener could be, I'm open to believing that there are other possibilities for me other than I'm broke, right? We're putting a statement in front of your current thought. You could also say something like, I'm no longer believing the thought, I'm broke. Those are examples of openers. Examples of some closers would be, I'm broke is a belief I'm working to change. I'm broke is a thought that I used to believe. I'm broke is not something I believe about myself anymore. Do you see how I'm moving farther and farther away there? So those are all examples of closers. Again, you're just adding a statement after your current thought. So as you're going through this process, I would recommend writing down a list of 3 openers and 3 closers that you like, that make sense to you, that resonate with you, that you can start to practice. And again, these should signal to your brain that your current thinking is something that is open to being changed and left behind so that it can be replaced with a new thought. Now, after you're comfortable with that, after you're comfortable with your openers and your closers, then we move to the next rung, which is establishing a thought that is between your current thought and your goal thought, that is neutral, but it's also believable. We have to move to a more neutral thought before we can get to a really positive thought. So in this example, we could just practice the thought, I have money. I have money. We're not saying anything about the amount of money that you have, but it is true, and your brain can believe and sign off on the fact that you do have money. Some of it, right? You do have money. So you're going to practice that neutral thought. You're going to get comfortable with that. After you're comfortable with your neutral thought, we can keep moving up our ladder rung by rung, and we can go from I have money to I have enough money. We practice that. We get comfortable with that. And then we can go from I have enough money to I have more than enough money. We practice that. We get comfortable with that. So you can see what we're doing here. We're moving farther and farther away from our neutral thought of I have money. Then eventually, as you're working your way up your ladder, rung by rung, thought by thought, you're going to be at a point where you're near the top of your ladder, okay? You're pretty close to your goal thought of I'm wealthy. You're at a point where you've worked your way up from I'm broke to now you're at a place where you believe I have more than enough money. And so now you're in a situation where instead of having to jump from I'm broke to I'm wealthy, which again is like leaping over the Grand Canyon, all you have to do now is just hop over your puddle and go from I have more than enough money to I'm wealthy. Do you see how much easier that is? It's such a more manageable jump for your brain to have to make. So this is the process of a thought ladder or bridge thoughts. And again, you can do this with anything. In our body image example, you could go from I hate my body to I have a body to I love my body over time. You don't have to make the extreme leap, the extreme jump from one to the other. In fact, I recommend that you don't because it typically doesn't work. You have to build up that belief and you have to work your way there over time. All right, so this is the process of believing new things. And again, why is this important? This is important because what you truly believe, you will create those results in your life. If you believe that you can get a better job, you'll get a better job. If you believe that you can get your student loans paid off, you're going to get those loans paid off. If you believe that you can build a 7-figure business, you will. You know the saying, you've heard this, Henry Ford. He says, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Now, I get it. Some people like roll their eyes and they're like, Paige, you can't just think things into existence. I know you can't. And I'm not saying that. I know that it's more than just thinking a thought and then poof, there it is. Okay, this isn't I Dream of Jeannie. But when you know the chain of events, when you know that your thinking creates your feelings and your feelings drive your actions and your actions create your results, then you can trace it back to see how your beliefs do shape your life, right? Like, have you ever just met someone that just totally believes in something that they're doing and you're like, 100%, they're going to get that, 100%. As an observer of their confidence in themselves and their belief in themselves, you're like, I am 100% behind you. I can tell how committed you are to this. I can tell how you believe in it so deeply. You don't even question them. You're like, yeah, this is done. This is happening for you. That is the same level of belief that you have to have for yourself. I want you to have that level of confidence and conviction in your own beliefs. Like, yep, done. This is happening. We have to practice believing. Remember, you're trying to turn your dirt road into a highway. We have to be patient with ourselves. We have to practice it. And when we notice that we're waning on believing something, that is when we have to recommit. We have to recommit to believing it and practicing it, because ultimately it's going to be what creates our result. So you have to ask yourself the question, what do I believe now? What do I want to believe instead? And am I willing to practice that new belief? Am I willing to practice believing something new? So to wrap us up, I actually want to share some of the thoughts that I've been practicing lately when it comes to my own goals. So some of these pertain to money, some of them don't, but I am going to share them with you. So I have my goal listed at the top of a piece of paper. And then underneath that, I have bullet points that are thoughts that I want to practice. So here are some of the thoughts that I'm currently working to practice. I have enough time. I have the ability. There are more than enough customers. What I have is needed and wanted. People are excited to learn what I know. So a lot of these are related to my business, but those are the beliefs that I'm trying to work on and practice. And then I practice again and I practice again and again. I intentionally choose those thoughts. I believe those thoughts on purpose. And listen, my brain is just like your brain, okay? My brain prefers to go to, I don't know if I can do it. This is hard. I've never been able to do this before. Who do you think you are? This isn't going to work. That's where my brain just naturally wants to go, right? It doesn't naturally want to go to the happy and confident place. I wish it could, but it doesn't. So instead, what I have to do is I have to practice believing that I'm capable enough. I have to practice thinking that I'm smart enough. I have to practice thinking that I have enough time and that I have the ability to pull off all the things that I want to pull off. I read those thoughts over and over and over again because I need to tell my brain what to focus on. I need to tell it what to do. I need to tell it what to believe. And the way that I teach my brain to believe something is by repeating it over and over. Do you guys remember from episode 2 when I was telling you how I believe that my brain and my mind are my most valuable assets, right? That's what I truly believe, because my mind is what's going to come up with and produce the value that I put out into the world. Your mind is also your most valuable asset. So we have to take care of and we have to be intentional about what's going on within it. So if you are willing to just start paying attention to what's going on, if you are willing to accept the role of being the watcher of your own mind and just spending a little bit of time each day practicing your beliefs, your life will change so fast you won't even know it hit you. Practice in patience. Be intentional about this. Watch your dirt road turn into your highway. And you will notice as that process starts to happen, as one turns into the other, as you start to go from one thought to the next, as you start to form new beliefs about yourself, about money, and about yourself with money, your results will transform in that area of your life. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. If you did, please make sure to share this episode on social media. Take a screenshot of it, do a screen recording of your favorite part, post it, tag me. And also, if you have a couple of minutes to leave a review of the podcast, it would mean the world to me. All right, I love you. I will see you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Money Love Podcast. If you're loving the podcast, then I want to invite you to join me in the Overcoming Overspending membership. It's where we take this work deeper and apply the concepts and coaching from each week's episode into your own life. By being a member, you have exclusive access to my Overcoming Overspending process, 10 monthly live coaching calls with me, a private podcast, members-only community, monthly money topic and challenge, bonus courses, and so much more. There's nowhere else like it out there to level up your finances and life. Simply go to overcomingoverspending.com to join, and you can enter in the code MLP30 at checkout to save $30 on your first month inside the membership. See you inside.